On the podcast this week, like him or loathe him, unfortunately, Donald Trump is a winner. We find out why. Welcome to the Profit Cash Growth Podcast. This is the podcast for 6- and 7-figure business owners who are looking to grow a financially successful business. My co-host, Claire Hancock, is a finance director, chartered accountant and entrepreneur. And every week, I'll be exploring guidance and frameworks designed to help you increase your profits, improve your cash flow and grow your business. Claire, I think we're going to have to migrate to doing this over a desk or something, because it's just like balancing a laptop and clipboard and notebook. It's all just a bit mid-airy for me.
You're not on camera, but the last one we just recorded, you were like waving your clipboard at me like an angry old man. like a campaigner, which is quite apt for today's episode. Anyway, just before we move on, a little bit of an interesting one. How many centenarians do you think there are in the UK at the moment, Claire? 10,000.
Not bad.
I'm quite good with guessing
not bad.
statistics.
It's 15,120. How many do you think there were 20 years ago in 2002?
10,000.
7,000. Yeah, so that's pretty much doubled in a little bit in just 20 years. So
interesting.
Old people are living longer and even longer beyond their hundreds.
I think it's really interesting, actually, because when you look at centenarians, so people over 100, they actually tend to be in fairly good quality of life. Like, you often look at them and you think,
they're more healthy than a 70-year-old I saw the other week. Yeah,
but then there are some people that,
look knackered at 60.
Like, I mean, my grandma absolutely love her to bits, but she is being kept alive by modern medicine, and
bless her, she's just broken, isn't she? Like,
yeah,
so many people are broken. I mean, I see people in their like mid-40s that I'd call broken sometimes.
But there does seem to be this big gap between people with good genetics and good lifestyle actually are living longer with much better quality of life, but then people that are becoming more unhealthy all the time are actually living longer but with a really poor quality of life.
This is true. So far this morning we've learnt about how to set up our podcast across a desk and how many 100-year-olds there are in the UK.
Yeah, not really business related at all.
No, not at all anyway.
That's what you get with the shit, isn't it?
I'm dead looking forward to this week's deep dive, because we haven't really shared our answers. But first, let's do news story of the week.
So this week's news story of the week is, I found this fascinating when I read it, and I'm sure maybe some of you also saw this in the news. It was about the Great Cheese Heist, how
the what?
A specialist cheese distributor lost about £300,000 worth of cheese it was defrauded out of. And then there was a similar story also for red wine that hit the news as well.
I did see that. And do you know what they called this? They wrapped this up, didn't they, a few weeks later, as high-end food fraud. There's like this whole like movement towards high-end food fraud going on at the moment.
I'm not convinced that there is. I just think that maybe that's the news making the most of it, because there have to be a couple. But this has got its roots in a very, very genuine business problem that I've worked in businesses that have been victim of this. So I think it's quite relevant to bring to the forefront. And basically what happened with this cheese story is the cheese company, the cheese supplier, received an order from a customer that they hadn't traded with for a little while, and they delivered the cheese to the warehouse that the customer asked for the cheese to be delivered to. The customer had a credit account, and then when they went to chase the payment from the customer said, "We never placed that order with you." And actually what had happened is that a fraudster had somehow intercepted that this cheesemaker supplied a completely unconnected company and pretended to be the unconnected company.
Right.
So the original customer was like, I don't know, like a restaurant or something, or a cheese exporter or whatever it is, and the fraudster pretended to be them and ordered off the cheese manufacturer, placed a fraudulent sales order, got the products delivered to a warehouse and shipped the goods. The goods went missing.
This is quite a well-known high-end cheese, Neil's Yard, isn't it? Which you now see in lots of supermarkets and various other things. But the question that I had with this was just, why cheese? I mean, when the wine one came out the week after, like, I get why you're nicking the wine.
I mean, I guess it's anything that there's a market for, isn't it?
This is the reason that all the joints in Tesco have got security tags on them now.
I mean, I've worked at businesses, and this is surprisingly common, actually. Particularly, like, if you think how easy it is for people to find out who your customers are, all they've got to do is, we had this one instance where somebody set up a Gmail account.
Yeah.
But the sales team just gets so used to seeing business names that they become a bit blind to the detail of the email address, and they didn't notice that the order had been sent from a different email address. We added a new delivery address onto the system, shipped the goods, and then we go and chase a payment, and the correct customer says that's absolutely nothing to do with us. We never placed that order, and it's a fraudster just pretending to be one of your legitimate customers.
God,
they do it by the telephone as well.
So if you had to bet what the next high-end food that's going to be frauded, what do you think it's going to be?
UK-wise?
Well, I don't know. I mean, where do we go with this story? It's the question.
Yeah, I don't know. It's clutching a little bit.
We've got cheese, we've got wine. They pair well together. Do you think it was a connected event?
And
actually, in town, the winery's just opened in town, hasn't it?
Yeah, maybe.
The cheese and wine place. Do you think that's where they're getting their supplies from?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the police actually got involved in this. Obviously it's a huge sum of money, but it is fraud at the end of the day. So the police get involved in this. But the reality is you're probably not going to get your money back. If you're lucky, you've got some sort of insurance that protects you from this. But
probably not.
Really the onus is on you. So from a business perspective, bringing this back to how businesses can be really mindful of this actually happens more frequently than you would think is always validate new delivery addresses and things like that. When an existing customer asks you to deliver goods to somewhere you've never delivered them to before, just double check. Belt and braces, use a contact number that you've got in your system, all of those sort of basic things that you can do.
Like you would with invoicing, and ring them, make sure it's the person invoicing. There's little
check
things.
The email address, have a look at the format of the sales order. All of those things are just little giveaways.
We were only talking about fraud again last week, weren't we? It was a news story. Fraud seems to be coming up just more and more and more as the news stories now, and it's something you have got to think about now, which is just annoying because we've got enough things to do as business owners. We don't need to be worrying about constantly being, frauded.
And do you know why this is you're so susceptible to this is because often this is big orders.
Yeah.
And you're so excited as a business owner to have this big order, this big opportunity that you become blinded to everything else.
Yeah,
and so you get your head turned by the sales.
Yeah. We all do, don't we?
Yeah.
We all see the sales number or the big client or whatever else. It's like when we take the clients on, the difficult clients, and they're going to be difficult from the beginning, but all you see is the money and the client or the growth of the business. So, okay, fun story, but probably not for Neil's yard. But
no, nor the wine business. But yeah, I think actually they got quite a bit of the cheese back in the end. So,
cool. So let's get into it and move on to this week's deep dive, Claire.
So I'm not particularly happy that we're doing this story, but in the spirit of the podcast, I throw myself into everything that Simon suggests I should.
I think this is, it's topical, and whether you love him or hate him, it doesn't matter. I think whoever it is in life, if they're on a success path, there's a clue there, and there's something that somebody can take from it and learn from it, and then you can apply your own morals and your own decision about what how you use them and various other things. So this isn't about politics and about whether you love Donald Trump or you hate Donald Trump. Clearly, America loves Donald Trump, and that's part of the question here, isn't it? It was a stonking majority. It was what it was. So, but what I thought we'd do today, bit of fun, but also hopefully some things you can take out of this, is we're just going to talk about. We just decided to pick 6 things that we think you could learn from Donald Trump's victory to the White House and how it applies to all things in business. Because let's be honest, running for president, it's very much like a business, isn't it, in terms of the way that you approach it. There's lots of crossovers. So I've got my 3. We haven't really shared these. I've got my 3 that I've picked out. You've got your 3, and we've just checked we haven't crossed over too much. There might be a bit of crossover, but that probably is not a bad thing because it will just reiterate the points that we've made. Shall I start?
So to clarify, it's 6 lessons that business owners can learn from Donald Trump's victory.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, so my first one, which is ironic because it stuck in my head the most, is what I would call the importance of repetition. And I think what's interesting about this is that you can't argue that you don't understand what Donald Trump's overarching vision is. What is his overarching vision, Claire?
Build the wall. Get the immigrants out.
MAGA.
Oh.
MAGA.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah.
Make America great again.
I thought I had to list the actual things that he stood for.
His overarching message is MAGA, make America great again. And he is incredibly... It's not just about that slogan, but actually if you think about the way he talks to people and the way that he puts his ideas out there, they're incredibly repetitive. He's an incredibly repetitive guy.
He's a simple guy, isn't he?
But is he a simple guy? Does a simple guy get to where he's got to in life?
I can't help it because I literally detest the man. Yeah. But he very simple messaging that was just consistent and repeated time and time again.
I think maybe that, it's not one of my points, but simplicity is often the route to lots of... We have a tendency to over complicate things, don't we?
Yeah, that's really true, actually. And you see this in businesses when they try and, I'm selling this product and now I'm going to sell this product, and then your messaging gets a bit confusing and what you're trying to do gets confusing and your processes get confusing and your team gets confused. So just keep it back to basics, couple of key messages.
Often businesses get out of control with complexity, and then somebody comes along, buys it, strips it right back to the basics, and it just runs 100 miles an hour, doesn't it? I think so. Clear, repetitive slogans, they're always easy to remember, and he's damn consistent with it. So that's one part. The second part is, I think that, when you do that, what you do is you end up building a lot of trust, because people just remember that same saying and they realise that you're consistent with your messaging over time. So you're not changing if you think about, bosses that you haven't liked in the past, let's say, the worst managers are the people that you don't know which boss you're going to get that day when you go into the office. They're always the worst people. Yeah. The best leaders in business are absolutely consistent, that you know that if you take this issue to them, you have a broad idea that they're not going to blow their top or whatever. They're going to act in a certain way about that. And that builds trust over time with that repetition. And also just imagery wise as well, I picked out a few things. I'm talking a little bit about my clothes, but I do a feature every week on video called Property of the Week, and I literally wear the same clothes.
You wear the same thing every week, and you have done for 7 years now.
And do you know what? And everyone mentions that. So I don't really care, because guess what? People are talking about my business, about what I'm wearing, about what I'm doing, and every week I show up in the same clothes. And guess what? Mark Zuckerberg, black t-shirt, same clothes every time. Steve Jobs, black t-shirt, same clothes. And there's something about that consistency and that repetition that I think helps with all those things. So that's my first point, importance of repetition, I think.
So my first point is about using other people's audiences. And we saw this with Donald Trump going on that infamous podcast that just... one of the most watched things ever on YouTube, and the fastest downloaded, and all of these sort of records that it broke. And just really goes to show that there are audiences in unusual places. And I think I became really susceptible to this mistake when I started my businesses. I wanted to build my own audience. I wanted my own email list, and I wanted my own social media platforms, my own YouTube channel and things like that. But actually, it's a really, really slow way of building it. And as soon as I started branching out into networks and talking to business investors and talking to other business coaches and things like that, people that are already working with my customers, all of a sudden I could talk to one person that could put me in touch with 20 potential customers. And I think that's what Donald Trump did really well, is he went and got some really key people, and all of a sudden getting somebody like Elon Musk on board, and look what's happened.
Yeah.
And I think those two things, getting Elon Musk on board and the Joe Rogan podcast, I think had you did start to see the polls changing, and the sort of the movement and the mood moving more towards Donald Trump after those two big changes. So leveraging
other people's audiences
as much as possible.
I think it's great. I think it's exactly correct, and you've evidenced even in your own business, how you've seen that firsthand. I've seen that firsthand in my business career. It's absolutely huge.
Yeah.
Look who's ahead of you in the game and work out how that you can influence that person. Because if you can network and you can get on the right side of one individual, it's basically what happens in all walks of life. And it's where the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know, comes from, isn't it? That you can only know, you can happen to just know one person. In the sales world, we also call this finding the whale. I hear this a lot, which is this thing about, you can talk to 10 people. You never know which one of the people you're talking to at any given time could be the whale. And when they say the whale, it's that person that actually unlocks multiple opportunities and changes that entire trajectory of what you're doing. And I think, great one.
It's like discovery calls. I probably do about 5 discovery calls a week. But if I can do 5 discovery calls with people that have got potentially 10, 15, 20 people that could be my customer, then that's 100 people that I've potentially reached in that week. Whereas if I just do 5 discovery calls directly with a business owner, then that's only 5 potential customers. So this is the power of leverage, isn't it?
Well, I'm going to, because I've got a little bit of overlap here, which I knew we'd end up with a little bit of overlap. So I'm going to move to my number 3, which is, I called it embracing innovation, in brackets, be bold. I guess they're kind of 2 different things, but I just kind of wanted to get them all together. But I guess embrace innovation. The thing that, and I think every business needs to do this, because if you don't innovate, then, somebody else is going to innovate around you and innovate you out the market. I think what really surprises me with Donald Trump is how open to innovation he is given his age. I mean, this guy's like mid-80s, and he is the most heavily reliant of the people out there on social media. You know what his social media presence has been. He really understands the importance of a direct-to-audience communication channel. So not a third-party media channel, but actually these places that talk directly to the audience. And that's what he used with Joe Rogan. It was really, really smart that he recognised that Joe Rogan hits 40 million listens on that podcast. That is the same amount of watches as the entire traditional media network combined, just in one podcast. And that goes direct, uncensored, unregulated to his audience. And I think a lot of people have said that just by listening to that, I said it to you.
Yeah.
And a lot of people said we heard him it was very personal. Half of that conversation was not about policies or politics. They were talking about football. They were talking about golf.
Yeah.
It was very cute.
It was just a normal man on that podcast. He wasn't the politician. I think that was different. But I wonder if a little bit of that might be also his naivety, because Kamala Harris has come from a background of politics and it's been her career for life. So she has been brought up the way that you campaign is by getting the media channels on board with you, whereas Donald Trump hasn't been brought up that way. So sometimes that naivety, sometimes bringing somebody into your team that's completely not outside of your industry and doesn't have a clue about what you do, and they sit there and they ask that stupid question that they think is stupid, but all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, yeah, that's like a light bulb moment.
You've just said about bringing people to your team, but even just going into a business industry, if you've got the core skills, it's what people always said about me when I went into a estate agency. But you've never been an estate agent. And you've just built the second largest estate agent in your town over 5 years. How have you done that? And actually, I think we did it because we came with no bad habits, no preconceived ideas about how the market worked or whatever. We just thought about what the customer wanted and thought about what we would have wanted as a customer. And then we just built a business that delivered on that, irrespective of what the ways it should or shouldn't be working. And I think that's the same. You're right. He's not got that years of being in politics, so he comes with a different approach with it. But that does impress me. And I think, again, you've got to continue to be innovative, irrespective of your age. You've got to go on. You've got to listen to podcasts. You've got to understand what the trends are. If you think that you shouldn't be using AI, actually, you need to be exploring it and understanding it first to understand how it impacts your business, irrespective of where you are. Because the second you stop innovating, then, like I say, somebody else is going to out innovate you. So, I thought that was an interesting one, because he was on a few different things, because he did the whole McDonald's thing as well. When I say be bold, he did the McDonald's thing. And again, he just totally understood how doing something that was both social media savvy and would hit a certain mass audience it was a bold thing to do. It was an innovative thing to do.
You compare it to, I think it's a little bit comparable to Kemi Badenoch, because she had that infamous moment in the UK. So she's now the new leader of the Conservative Party. And she said that she was brought up, was it in a middle class family, but she became working class at 16 when she got her first job in McDonald's. And I thought, you can't really become working class. You either are or you aren't. But you've got Donald Trump literally like penny on in a drive-through window, and then Kemi Badenoch saying, "Oh, I'm working class because I was once in McDonald's," and you can just see it's chalk and cheese. Yeah,
what you don't see, like I said, we obviously know about the Joe Rogan over here, and we know about the McDonald's thing. What you don't see below the surface is actually he also popped up on lots of the followers I follow, people like Dave Ramsey in America, just having these same conversations. Not quite as big, but having these, he's really working the audience.
Also, he would just do normal stuff, like he would go to a Chinese restaurant that, can only seat like 30 people and things like that. So the reach wasn't so big, but it was such an unusual thing for a politician to do that therefore it was getting a lot of media coverage. So he was so clever with the way that he used the media.
So embrace innovation and be bold. That's number 3.
Okay.
What have you got number 4?
Well, my number 2 is, or number 4.
Or number 4.
Yeah, is that budget isn't everything. And I think that it's very easy when you're a small business to think sometimes I can't compete with the bigger guys, my competitors, the people that are bigger than me, the big business. But just some statistics. So Kamala Harris' budget was about $1 billion, just shy of $1 billion, 997 million.
Wow.
So staggering number.
Wow, that's how, I mean, what do people in the, parties in the UK get for that campaign? It's like hundreds of thousands, isn't it?
But the rules in America are completely different. And obviously there's 7 times the population in America.
Yeah.
So but the rules are so tight in the UK as to what you can do, whereas in America it's like a free for all.
Huge amount of money. Anyway, huge amount of money.
Whereas Trump had about 400 million, and just to put that in perspective, about 200 million of that came from what's known as a super PAC, and it's basically like a group of people that get together to support a political party. That's all it is. But this one was headed up by Elon Musk, and generally they think that Elon Musk personally put most of that 200 million into it. So around about half of Trump's campaign was funded by Elon Musk.
Can I interject here? Because when we spoke, this is interesting to see what your view, because you said that originally, like off the cuff, you were like, oh, it's just he had a bigger budget, Donald Trump. But you said I need to do the research and understand that and whatever else. So now obviously you've got the data the other way around. You've turned your entire, one of your things that you can learn from it is the opposite, which is actually David can kill Goliath.
Yeah. By just a couple of strategic, all those things that we talked about already, that actually his budget became irrelevant.
Because I would have thought that, again, just totally off the cuff, not knowing much about America, I would have thought Donald Trump probably had a bigger budget, had more money, so he's splashing more cash around. But then I did say to you that obviously the Democrats were supported by 6 of the 7 magnificent 7 stock market companies, and the only one that supported Trump was Tesla and Elon Musk. So the money flowing into the Democrats must have been way more, and obviously those stats seem to show it. So that is impressive. So he's done a lot with the littles. Is that what you're saying?
I think the problem is the type of person that supported Donald Trump. It's like, and we've seen this with other businesses, people that build an online presence. Taylor Swift is a great example of this. People don't just like Taylor Swift. People love Taylor Swift. Yeah. Like there is nothing. You're either you don't really care or you're an absolute devout super fan. And it was the same with Donald Trump, whereas Kamala Harris was like the logical, obvious choice for maybe slightly better off people or for women or things like that. She was a logical choice, a well-rounded choice. But the people that were very likely to be passionate and be super fans and argue on social media and shout to the world, vote Donald Trump, were the people that were supporting the Republicans. So it's like the budget means nothing. If you can mobilise your audience to become super fans, then it doesn't matter about the budget because that's free. Really
interestingly, basically what you're finding here is another example of leverage, aren't you? That not only he's leveraged audience, but he's leveraged his budget as well, because he's obviously got a lot more for a lot less money by leveraging other people's budgets, i.e. other podcasters. There's no Spotify and Joe Rogan. They promote their own podcast. All he's doing is legging on the back of that. He's not spending the money promoting it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it is really interesting. He's very good at marketing. Very good at marketing.
I nearly put, one of my points was just marketing, but it was just too broad. And I think we're seeing here there is more nuance. I want it to be a little bit more nuanced than just marketing. But like marketing is everything. There is a reason that, it is the thing to learn in business, isn't it? That, literally business owners should be spending 80% of their time marketing their business forever. I literally spend, or I try my damn hardest not to get operation involved. I try and spend, 80% of my time on different businesses. All I want to do is market, because, I always say only do what only you can do. And I know that you can outsource marketing, but generally it's never as good as when you do it yourself.
You can outsource like the paid ads and, maybe some content creation in terms of like the editing and putting it together and stuff.
But the tone of voice.
The strategy and the tone has got to be you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I personally
and these guys are proving it no matter what size. Elon Musk, these guys will still be the person of influence of their super brands, the Tim Cooks of the world and like Steve Jobs and people like that. So it's so important.
It's really interesting because I was reading today, there's been a mass exodus of people from Twitter following the fact that Elon Musk has come out and so heavily supported Trump, and obviously it's widely expected that he's going to have some sort of political sort of career and things like that. Yeah, there's been a mass exodus from Twitter onto other social media platforms. So
So I have as our number 5, my final point is I've got surround yourself with expertise or surround yourself with experts. He is clearly
inept.
Yeah, he's clearly a CEO. He's clearly a leader. He's clearly,
senile,
all these
narcissist.
Things.
Not anymore.
He's a Richard Branson. He's a I'm dyslexic.
No, you cannot compare Richard Branson, one of the kindest, most caring, wokest people in the world.
No. In terms of if you think about the core message, surround yourself with experts. Richard Branson's just another example of that. He's never really lifted a finger.
Stephen Bartlett maybe might be a more modern
I don't really know him very well, but I know people like Richard Branson. He just has amazing people around him.
Yes.
And I think, and I'm going to say another person, which again you're going to kick off with Boris Johnson. I'm sorry, but he's just another man that surrounded himself with absolute experts because he's not the expert. But I describe these people as being the conductors of their orchestras. They are sensational at that. They have the very best people. And he's had that.
It's interesting that you bring that back to Boris Johnson because actually, when you look on paper, Donald Trump is a catastrophic politician. His qualities and everything like that doesn't work, and the same with Boris Johnson. It was questionable, and then you put on paper somebody like Rishi Sunak, who seems to have all the skill set, but the one thing that he lacked was the ability to lead people, and leading is all about making people want to follow you.
But the problem is
and inspiring people, and Donald Trump and Boris Johnson did that really well. They could just make a crowd of people want to follow them, whereas
I guess the challenge is that by doing that in what you say, what you're doing is you're putting a label against politician, aren't you?
What do you mean?
Well, you're saying that a politician acts, behaves, and does a certain set of things. But who said that?
No, I think generally on paper, if you were to say, okay, what should a good leader do? They should be balanced. They should be empathetic. They should be able to strategize. They should be, but none of that matters. Actually, the only thing you need to be a leader is to make people follow you.
Well, and you've got to be highly decisive. Can we not talk about Hitler, please?
But it's like a classic example of somebody who everything about them was flawed, but the fact that they could get people to follow them is literally the only thing that you need to worry about as a leader, is how you inspire people and you make people want to come with you. And I think that's a really important thing for a business owner to take on board, because it's how you recruit good people, it's how you retain good people, it's how you move your business forward.
It's completely how the best businesses in the world run.
Leadership.
They have that leadership in it. So surrounded by expertise. And I think in some ways the leverage thing, he also, from a marketing perspective, while his inner circle, is covering all those different things, his outer circle, he had Elon Musk on one side, he had Joe Rogan on another, the Dave Ramsey, he had the McDonald's thing going on. He's got all these sort of
Rob Moore.
I don't think he was on that, but I think he's got all these external experts, but then he's got these internal advisors as an experts. And I think like the learning for business owners is that, you're not supposed to be good at everything, but you need good advisory in marketing, you need good advisory in finance, you need good advisory in operations. You need to work out who those experts are. You either place them internally yourself or you get great advisors that can work with you, don't you? And I think that helps also with mitigating risks, because again, you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. And until you get somebody in that does know that you are, you're running at quite a high risk level. So yeah, I think business owners just need to understand their own knowledge gaps and be self-aware enough to fill them.
So number 6.
Finally, this must be amazing, Claire.
I think this is
we are
quite
closing
amazing,
with
actually.
This one.
I think this is quite a reminder of what a lot of small business owners struggle with sometimes, and it's to stop worrying about how. When Donald Trump said he was going to build a wall, all the Democrats said, how are you going to do that? It's not possible. There's not enough money. The wall's too long.
Yeah.
None of Trump's supporters were worrying about how. They were just like, I love that idea. Let's do it. And then you worry about the how afterwards. And I think as business owners, if you think too much about the how, you turn your back on so many good opportunities or so many good ideas because the how seems too difficult to do. Yeah.
So a good example of this would be a very well-known sort of saying, which is get the sales now and worry about the operations later.
Yeah. Or eat the elephant. Well, it's like about eating the elephant bite by bite, like how you eat an elephant. You're not going to eat the whole thing in one go.
But people do that is. So I, we'll sometimes talk to business owners who'll be like, yeah, but I couldn't service the customer if I got this. So they end up like holding back their push for sales and marketing because they're worried of this influx of customers they can't handle.
It's never going to happen.
Look, trust me, we've started enough businesses, and actually, do you know what? Every time I've had that fear, you had it as well. We put adverts where you're like, oh my God, don't switch it on too much, don't spend too much because I won't be able to call everyone back. Guess what? You turn it on, nothing happens.
It never happens like you think it's going to happen. But
it takes forever. It's a slow burn. Trust me, if you're struggling to service somebody because you need to fix the operations, trust me, that day that those sales come flying in, you'll just want to fix the operations. You just will.
And I think as business owners, particularly when you're going from that being involved in the business a lot to stepping back a bit more and being more of a CEO, it's very easy to think about barriers with your operational head on. And you do just need to really step back and be that visionary and be bold and, say stupid, crazy things. Like I've got a business owner that I'm working with and he's like, I want to sell my business for 50 million. And that sounds bonkers, but it's very doable. Like actually,
if he doesn't put it, the thing is,
if we put a plan into action, then absolutely that big bold dream is possible. If we think about the how and the what and the barriers and all the things that are going to get in the way,
you'll never get out of your bed in the morning.
It will never happen. We just need to believe it's possible and then worry about how we do it.
And people have two different mindsets to this, don't they? So take that guy there. They either put out a number and their view is like, oh my God, I've thrown the number out there now, so now I have to hit it because it's embarrassing.
Knowledge.
It's common knowledge, it's public knowledge. So therefore, do you know what? Because it's out there, you're more likely to hit it anyway because now you're accountable to the world because you put that number out there. And then there's the other person who doesn't want to put it out there because of the fear of, oh my God, what if I don't hit it? Oh my God, what if I fail? Oh my God, what if this doesn't happen? And therefore, just by not even putting it out there in the first place, well, you're never going to hit if you don't put it out there. And that is very much in the world of, you really got to get over yourself at that stage, haven't you? Because, you just got to go for it.
Yeah, so I think that would be probably the biggest takeaway from everything that Donald Trump's done, because everything that Donald Trump says doesn't make sense.
No, I mean,
like when you dig into the detail, it's all a bag of crap. None of it works. None of it, he's going to round up illegal migrants by using the army, and he's going to build a wall, and he's going to put tariffs on things. Probably none of this stuff is going to happen to the level or degree that he said.
But he got his answer. And going back to some of the points I made around repetition, embracing innovation and being bold, think about Brexit. Fundamentally, the thing that got Brexit was a great big red bus with a great big number written on it. That wasn't true.
It wasn't. Nobody talked about how we're going to do Brexit, which is why we ended up in a mess. And maybe that's a bad example
it's a bad example,
raise
and
at this point.
It's not. It's also a bad example of how understanding these ways of doing things and these powers aren't necessarily. You don't have to agree with them, and you don't have to execute them if you feel they're not for the right greater good. But put into the right hands, then you can get the answers you want and get the success you want.
Yeah, it's the vision. So, if you have the vision and get the right team around you, anything is possible.
You'll be president.
You could. You'd be president of America.
Literally. I think, we laugh, but literally a guy has just gone out and gone, I want to be president of America. And all he's done is he's just made it happen. And that, unfortunately, is what's happened.
But I mean, this is what happens in other countries. It's like Ukraine is a classic example of this. Like Zelensky was like a comedian, and now he's like fighting a war with Putin. It's like absolutely insane what you can make happen.
Someone's got to do it, haven't they?
Not us. We're going to carry on doing the Profit Cash Growth podcast
exactly.
now. So that's our vision.
Awesome. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. And if you do have any thoughts on our different points, or if you think we've missed a really, really important one, please, just drop us a note at marketing@profitcashgrowth.com or on the LinkedIn, on the podcast page on LinkedIn. Please just drop a comment on any of the videos about your thoughts on it. And what we got in this week's Profit Cash Growth Extra.
So this week I am introducing probably something that I have lived my life by for about 8 years now, and it's called MyZone. And if you've heard of MyZone, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. And for those of you that haven't, MyZone is a heart rate tracker for exercise. So there's been some, like Apple Watches, and Oura Rings is another one that are fairly similar, and Whoop bands, all of that. But MyZone's kind of probably one of the original. And MyZone is basically a chest strap. So it measures your heart rate when you're exercising. And the reason why I love MyZone is because the numbers don't lie. Like MyZone will tell me exactly what my heart rate is doing. So I know on those days that I feel like I should be pushing harder in the gym or pushing harder when I'm running or something like that. I know whether actually is my heart really pumping and am I as knackered as I feel it, or is it a mental thing? And I just need to keep pushing through. So that's one of the reasons why I really love MyZone, because the numbers don't lie. But also MyZone has targets, and you have to do 30. They have these points, so every time you do exercise, they give you points, and you have to hit a certain minimum and then you get awarded different statuses. Now I've built my status up to Hall of Fame rock star, which means I think I've used MyZone consistently every single month for 6 years, and I've done at least the recommended amount of exercise. I mean, I do about 10 times more, but for 6 years,
compounding results there, Claire. I like
years I have done this, so there is absolutely no way that I will ever let go of that status, I don't think. No. But I think this is why it's really important when you've got those numbers in front of you day in, day out, and it just really helps hold me accountable as well, gets me in the gym. Like,
do you know what's mad is that you got me into this, and
I got you into MyZone.
And do you know, very occasionally when you forget your MyZone when you go to the gym.
Oh, there's no point being at the gym if you haven't got your MyZone, or if the batteries run out or something like that. Genuinely,
basically means your workout never happened if you do it without the MyZone on, doesn't it? That's how you feel. Like,
that is how you feel. Yeah.
Actually, this is it's so powerful psychologically. It scares me. Like the thought of not being able to see how I'm doing while I'm in the gym, tracking my calories up and my heart rate and everything else, and not being able to have banked that, award of that day's gym in the app and very something. It's pretty frightening, the power of numbers, isn't it? Like tracking numbers, and it doesn't matter what it is in your life, but I think it's a sign that if you've got those dashboards and those numbers in front of you, once you've got them, you'll never live without them, and it'll inform everything you do. What
I really love about MyZone is, like, one of my favorite things to do in the gym ever is what I call like grunt work, and it's just like moving really heavy stuff, so like sled pushes or like sandbag carries, things like that. And what I love about just the simplicity of MyZone is it puts your heart rate into different colours. So you've got like grey, which is probably like a slow walk, and then you've got blue, green, yellow and red means you're about to die. And being able to push your heart rate up to 100% is just everything. When you get that little email saying, well done, you reach maximum heart rate, you've worked really hard. But little things being able to build into your workout, like green means go. If you get back to green, you're resting too much, you've got to go again. It's things like that.
What I like is that I've got a wife that does grunt work. I mean, it makes it's just, yeah, it's great. Anyway, thanks for joining us for another podcast. Let's swiftly move on. And as always, if you feel like you might have outgrown your current accountant and you'd like to have a chat with Claire and the team at Profit Cash Growth, do get in touch with them at the website, profitcashgrowth.com. On there, you can book a discovery call and have a chat with Claire. She'll do a financial health check of your business and see where and how we might be able to help you out and take you to the next level. And as always, if you don't mind, rate, reviewing and subscribe or follow the podcast wherever you listen to it. And if you could just share this episode, again, this is a great episode to share because it is very topical at the moment and it's causing divides all over the place. So if you know somebody that really hates Donald Trump,
like me,
yeah, that'd be a great one. Send this to everyone you know that hates Donald Trump, just to say there is a reason he won. Listen to these guys. And
for the record, though, I don't like Donald Trump.
No, I think we've got that message.
You do, though.
Do you know about repetition? What I was saying about repetition?
Just in case anybody was ever in doubt, I'm not a Donald Trump supporter. I want
people
to know that I have a heart.
Great again.
I'm not sexist and I'm not racist.
And we'll see you again next week.